You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
I'm here with Chris Panebianco, who was most recently at Bankers Healthcare Group, or BHG, as most people think about it, which was in the lending category, primarily to business executives. I know that because I had received one of his direct mail pieces back when he was still there. So first question for you, Chris, is, as a very direct response focused organization, which certainly direct mailers tend to be, sort of, how did you decide on your marketing mix? I'm sure that was a huge challenge every year.
It was. And when I first got there, Kevin, all we did was direct mail. And in 2009, we sent about 20,000 mailers a month, just healthcare professionals that owned a practice, 1 to 3 professionals. Since then, we've grown significantly. But we had 2 mailers. One had a little tearaway card on it. Again, it was just 2 very simple direct mail pieces. And as time progressed, they allowed me to get a little bit more creative, and we started to implement data and analytics. To date, we've done from 2009 to up until a couple of weeks ago, before I retired, we did over 4,000 different iterations of direct mail. And as that changed in the first year, in 2009, we added in personalized URLs. So we started to really change the experience from get a letter, have a need, pick up the phone and call, to you could kind of window shop a little bit, and you could go on, find more information at your own leisure. Again, with healthcare professionals, their hours are crazy. A lot of the times we would see weekend traffic. And what that Pearl allowed us to do was really be available 24/7. So we started out with just simple direct mail. That 20,000 turned to our most recent month was over 12 million mailers. So we've added different mixes. It's not just healthcare. We did licensed professionals. Now, basically, we will do business loans or personal loans for anybody that makes usually, over $75,000. So it's expanded. And with that has come the mix of digital. As everyone knows, it's not just a one-to-one relationship anymore. It's an integrated approach.
Yeah, and obviously, within digital, did its bread and butter for its first 12 years with my day job was search marketing, because that's where people actually raise their hand. And so that's sort of harvesting existing demand. But direct mail, obviously, is sort of one step up the funnel, but you just hope to catch them at the right time with the right message that they take action. How have you thought about direct mail from the perspective, okay, does it move into mid funnel for you guys, or was it really sort of like bottom funnel?
It was bottom, and what it's done is we've pushed it to middle. The mid funnel is as important as anything, because that's where we get a lot of people that come in and maybe the timing was off, or maybe they didn't qualify. So we are using direct mail in that mid section of people that have interacted with us but haven't become a customer, and it's allowed us to really change the message. And we used a lot of models. We used a lot of models to bring in the right time and the right customer, and then apply that to the right message. What data can we get that tells us why there might be a need for a loan? So we have some really smart people that were creating models and then giving us different factors that we could use to go out and get the right message to that mid funnel, bottom funnel. And again, that has to be tied in, as you mentioned, in search. For us, it was more on the branded search. People are getting all of these mailers consistently. They say, who's BHG? They're going online. So our branded search was equally as important, because it was a one-to-one. I'm getting the mail, I'm going to Google or to Bing and saying, who is this company? And then having that right pathway once they come in to educate and make it very easy, frictionless for them to get right into an application once they realize it's what they need.
Great. Well, thanks. Great advice there. We had also, on the direct mail side of Did It's business, we had been using Pearls for a while. One thing we layered in, and I noticed you guys did as well, as a result of the pandemic, was QR codes, which got rescued from oblivion by menus. because it used to be nobody really used QR codes, but during the pandemic and post-pandemic, at a lot of places, you can't order at a restaurant unless you know how to use a QR code. Obviously, technology also caught up. It became native in both iOS and Android, which increased adoption rates by the consumer. And I'm even seeing QR codes heavily on outdoor advertising now. And we're starting to hyper-personalize the QR codes to the outdoor placements so we can figure out which ones are working for clients. But one thing that you did, which I thought was really quite sophisticated, although pretty aggressive, was when I got your piece of direct mail and I scanned the QR code, clearly you had appended my data file with additional information, because I got a text and I got a phone call from your team. I didn't respond to either of them because I don't need a loan, but I was really positively impressed, right? That you had hyper-personalized the QR code and chosen to trigger CRM as a result and give your sales team some Glengarry leads. And, I had invented that over this summer and I thought I was unique till I got your email, because we're doing that for clients too.
Yeah, it was something that, as you said, before the pandemic, we had tried QR codes. It was a cool thing. And we threw it on direct mail and you had to download the app and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Once, and I can't remember who brought it back. We missed it. It wasn't even someone in marketing. They came and said, hey, I'm really using the QR codes. And I think they were in New York City. And they, hey, it's so easy. So we tried it. And then what you find is we didn't really do a lot of A/B testing. We just went, hey, this is improving response rate. And what it did is anybody who does direct mail knows the hardest thing is getting your mail open and getting someone to respond. But now you've added something in that creates a better user experience and that we're now trained to do. So what we found is response rates increased. But again, it was at the right pull through, not all the time. In certain groups and segments it was, but at least it got someone to interact with our brand and they saw that. So now we're hoping for what? Brand share. I want that equity in their mind. If, hey, we need to put that pool in, or I want to start a business, I need to consolidate some debt. So all of that went into using the QR code because it gave us that initial impression and engagement with our brand. Now what we need to do was say, okay, what's the next step? And that's where we integrated in the outbound call strategy, text, email triggering, where we're combining our database, our proprietary database of data with an activity that the user took. So now we churn that. And again, we're using our models to say, here's where we want to put live voices on. Here's where we'll just do automation. And so that was a really big thing that we spent a lot of time on, and it's still being perfected today. I think it's something, as you watch the conversion metrics and the engagement rates, you'll see, BHG continue to tweak that model. And then as the digital process of obtaining a loan continues to be tweaked, you'll see that model and those activities change too.
Right. One thing that we've found with clients who are doing heavy direct mail or other non-search marketing is the curiosity that's stimulated as a result of the receipt of that message, particularly in direct mail. It stimulates that search behavior. And so it tends to be branded search, which means that reputation management in Google becomes particularly important. So our strategy for those clients has always been to control as much of the SERP, the search engine results page, as you can, not just making sure you rank, because obviously Google will generally rank you for your own brand, but it's really those next 19 results below that, right? And trying to take control of many of those. And that ends up becoming sort of a digital PR initiative more than anything else. I'm curious how you guys approach that, given the surge in brand-related searches that must have occurred as a result of your mailing.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point you bring up, Kevin. And it involves a lot of people at the table. You've got sales, you've got PR, you've got internal, external comms, you've got performance marketing, you've got the revenue folks, you've got legal. Everybody's at the table. So coming in to say, all right, number one, we have to be okay with creating two budgets. One is your performance marketing. The other one's brand. And within that brand budget, you're going to have things that don't lead to immediate ROI, but they're important as you go. Like you just said, people are getting our direct response piece. They're going here. Most people, and it depends on, the customer, but a lot of people are going below the fold. They're going to page 2. So what shows up it is important, especially when you're making a decision about a financial, our average loan was $100,000 on the business side, 50,000 on the consumer side. So people aren't just going to click on an ad and go when it comes to their money. And especially when you're building a brand and you're not a household name. So we had a lot of people. It's something that we were just on the cusp of in Q4 that will be a big priority in Q1 of 2022 that the team is working on, working with a relationship partner to manage that. But again, a lot of it's got to be a good mix. You can't just do PR. It has to be thought leadership. It has to be building the subject matter experts within your company and providing value. What does your brand mean? What are you doing for your customer? So all of that with 15 people at the table leads to some good conversation that I am unfortunately missing these days as it provided some quality entertainment. But I think when you get enough people at the table that bring the diverse backgrounds, I think good things can happen, especially with how you approach that, as everything is interconnected now.
Great. One other question that I think will be really valuable for the B2B marketer. You're sort of a hybrid because you're going after often a healthcare professional where the lines between personal loans or business loans may be pretty blurry. But you just based on how you reached me, I know that you're sort of using simultaneously business postal addresses and home postal addresses. And with people working from home now, there may be a lot of even pure B2B marketers who are thinking, okay, maybe if I'm going to do direct mail, I shouldn't just be doing direct mail to the business address. I should append on try to append on, if I can, the person's home address as well. How did you guys think that through? With the pandemic, obviously, maybe not for the healthcare category, but for other categories that you lend to, there was probably a change in where people would be most likely to open their mail.
We actually did this years ago. It was almost 2012 when we started, because we had started 2013. We had started to offer personal loans. So we were mixing the two, doing combined messaging. And it was a strategy that we had 8-9 years ago to say, the hardest thing in direct mail, because at that time we were still heavy direct mail, 95 to 97% of our lead flow came from direct mail. Well, when you're going B2B, what's the hardest thing? Is getting it into the hands of someone. Now you're going after, at that time, up until 2013, we had only worked with healthcare professionals. So you have the receptionist, you have the back office staff. They're incentivized not to get anything through that isn't official. So we had to really think, and we sat down as a team. We have a great fulfillment partner in Summit Direct Mail out of Dallas, Texas. They said, here are some things you should consider. We had many data partners. So we saw that about 8 or 9 years ago, and we started, and it just made even more sense as the pandemic came about. And again, when you're doing both commercial and personal loans, it's easier to justify that. But we were getting our mail piece in the hands of the person we wanted to, and not getting it to a receptionist or an office manager. So that was a big thing that we were way out in front of. But it was more because of the mix of the product use than it was with pandemic related issues.
Great, thanks. One other area that you and I both have passions in is the nonprofit community. And I know that the company had sort of experimented with different ways of helping nonprofits. Do you have any sort of interesting marketing stories about, how you were able to sort of engage with the nonprofits of different sizes or engage with them in different ways?
Yeah, that when I started out with the company, we worked with Operation Smile. We've worked with American Heart Association, American Cancer Society. And we had at BHG, our corporate headquarters are in Fort Lauderdale. Our financial headquarters are in Syracuse, New York. And Syracuse, especially with my being located here, our CEO, we focused a lot. We have deep roots here. And this community, while it's coming back now, was in rough shape 10 years ago. And so instead of taking, a $50,000 check to one of the bigger national associations, again, that's great money. It's great cause. But what we found were there were local charities that $5,000, $10,000 could mean an entire year to them in the impact. So the CEO, the ownership group gave me the green light to really build out the BHG Cares program in Fort Lauderdale, in Syracuse. And we've seen tremendous movement for these groups over the last 12 years that we've been doing it. Now what you'll see is we've grown. We'll start to do more national, but we'll always take care of where our home base was in the two cities. And whether it was we did, I love our partnership with some of the groups here. David's Refuge, they do, I actually serve on the board. They do respite weekends for families with severely disabled children. $15,000 takes care of 20, 30 families, gives them hope. We worked with Golisano and local cancer societies that we actually paid for rides for people that couldn't get to chemotherapy. We put $20,000 into an account and it took care of it. It's still there, but we took care of over 300 patients. In Fort Lauderdale, we took care of the same groups. We're working with schools. We're, for Juneteenth, we did a lot down there. For Pride Month, we've done a lot. And it's something that I'm so proud of, because you feel it, and we get, and it's not just money. Our time is even more important. I put out an email to over 1,200 people and say, hey guys, we just donated money, but we need some people to volunteer. I literally just hit send and I have 100 people coming back. So the financial aspect, but the human capital, the human resources side is just tremendous. And, there's just great organizations out there that we've been able to make a difference for.
One thing that seems to be a common thread in those sort of smaller to medium-sized organizations is that the tangibility of the benefit that you're able to, that feedback loop, right, where yourselves, both from a financial perspective and from a time perspective, you were able to get that immediate feedback and sort of see the impact of the money, as opposed to it just being a check that went into some big lockbox somewhere. So it sounds like that really, that ability to sort of tie together the effort into sort of the social ROI, right? The social impact ROI was much easier to manage.
Yeah. And it allowed for creativity too, Kevin. I mean, one of the things that I would always get frustrated with the bigger organizations, I'm like, look, let's get creative. Take a pencil out. Let's draft something that you've never done. What's your biggest need? And then get the marketing side going. Like you said, the social impact, who are we helping? Let's talk to the families. What could we do better? How can this money, this $10,000 check, do something you've always wanted to do that makes you different from everybody else? So that creativity is what really got me going, where, some of the bigger groups, they're not going to take a call from me, and, we're too small, our donation, but here it really allowed, and it's changed the way some of these groups work. So the satisfaction we get from that is just, it's second to none. Absolutely.
Now that you're retired, but probably not permanently retired, you're probably able to look at some of the digital media channels from a new sort of broader viewpoint, not purely as a sort of bottom of the funnel marketer. Are there any things that you either see yourself or you see your kids or other family members, your nieces and nephews, when they're using using TikTok or they're using Instagram or whatever, has it sort of changing your opinion of sort of how marketers should think about their channel if they're not pure direct response?
You know what? That's such a great thing. And it's amazing when you take a step back. For 13 years, I was on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 300 miles an hour. And, at night, it's always funny, people tell you, therapists, that you and your wife shouldn't sit there, you and your partner shouldn't sit there and look at your phones. Well, we do. And I'm reading emails. I'm checking all of our stats and our reports. My wife is on TikTok watching the range. I thought TikTok was just what you see on the news, these people dancing to a video. It's some viral, the ocean spray in Fleetwood Mac, the guy riding on the skateboard was amazing. But my wife she's following different doctors, or, one of my sons has a condition. She's researching that, and there's value. So I started thinking one of the things that is going to be bigger for BHG in 2022 as they shift towards brand is influencer marketing. And if we're providing loans or a financial solution for something, how can we tie that into some of the influencers on these different platforms? Pinterest is a big one. We do a lot of home improvement loans on our consumer side. So how can we connect? Who's being followed? How can we integrate our solution? And then the key is it can't be salesy, right? So it has to feel natural.
Authentic.
So I've been watching the influencer side. There's a great company in Orlando, IZEA. I worked with the founder of IZEA a long time ago, and just watching their platform grow and the connections they're making, how they're connecting brands with influencers. I still personally haven't joined TikTok, but I do have a Pinterest account. I built some shelves for my office here. I'm trying to fill the time. And it's just one of those things that it's moving so fast, Kevin, that I hope marketers are paying attention and really taking an outside the box look, maybe a pause to say, maybe traditional way of thinking this wouldn't fit, but there might be a way that you can think. And I think right now, whatever's next for me, it's got to be that connection to the audience and almost anticipating where they're going to be and what the mentality is with that, and finding a way to connect your brand or your product or your service. I think there's a lot of brands that I'm watching going, why aren't they here? And it's a scary thought. I bet you there's a lot of CMOs, a lot of brand folks, a lot of agency folks that are stressed about that. How do I get my client? How do I get my brand on these channels? And so it'll be interesting to see, but I'm definitely, I'm broadening my horizons now as I have a little bit more time.
Yeah, one interesting thing that I didn't expect as sort of a tie-in between direct mail and digital was that, creative now is absolutely a must, right? Great creative, because once you're playing for any form of boosted media, whether it's search or boosted social media in Facebook, right? A lack of engagement means that algorithm will vote you down.
Yeah.
Right? So bad creative is no longer an option. And that's true in direct mail because of the fact that the postage alone, right, is going to make it infeasible for you to mail if you don't have, spot on creative. And I sort of feel like that focus on creative optimization and creative iteration that direct mail folks have can serve people well in digital, right? Because it's sort of, you're never finished with creative, right?
Never.
With direct mail, right?
Never.
It's something that is a constant improvement process, and it changes over time, right? QR codes 4 years ago didn't work. Now QR codes work, and you sort of have to constantly reinvent the creative. So any thoughts about that? How marketers should think about the creative process and the amount of time, energy, and human capital they put into that?
I think it's crazy. Early in my career, I didn't pay as much attention to creative. Digital wasn't as big. It was more direct mail. How do I get that response? This has to look the part. It has to look official, look good. What I've found is that each channel has its own purpose. I think you start with your brand guide, right? You got to have the brand guidelines set so that your creative team knows where the boundaries are. And then they have to be able to operate that and push those boundaries. But I do believe, and it's a fun argument I've had over the last few years, especially in digital. Direct mail, official, especially in finance, it's got to look official. There's got to be something memorable in there. We always used a plastic card, right? So, most people, credit card companies would send that out. You have that, at least you'll open it to cut it up or to see. So that was something we did. And then, the brand, it has to look good. You have to be trustworthy, the words you use. So creative isn't just beautiful pictures, it's actually the copy too. So then when you shift into digital, it's got to match. It's got to look the same. It's got to be within brand guidelines. But we're such a society, and I would annoy people when I would do this. But I said, think about it. We're all on mobile devices. We just do this. We flip or we scroll. And, everybody, people who played video games, I grew up playing video games. You'd have the callus on your thumb. Now you have the callus on the opposite side from where you're scrolling. But I said, guys, you've got to stay within brand standards, but you have to stand out. Not everybody, you can't just show smiling people, the blues and greens. People thought I was crazy one day. One of the questions we had was, or a request, we needed to recruit better in Syracuse. And in upstate New York, there's 690 and Route 81 that go right through Syracuse. So we bought a billboard. And I was driving to work and I kept seeing, I never even paid attention, but I forgot my coffee. And all of a sudden this bright pink Dunkin' Donuts, orange, pink, brown coffee thing. I needed Dunkin' Donuts, and it caught my attention. So I called my head of creative. I said, here's the deal. Let's get a board. They want top talent in Syracuse. Here's what we do. I want bright pink, the brightest annoying pink you can get. I want white font that says, "Are you awesome?" And then bhdcareers.com. And we did it. And it was funny because I had been gone from Syracuse for a while, and I had people call me from high school, friends of family, said, "Hey, have you lost it? We saw your billboard. What? They allowed you to do that?" It had the BHG logo on it. Finally, I got a call from one of our HR people. They're like, "Look, we've got too many applications. Please, we're going to just take the darn thing down." So again, long-winded way of saying sometimes you have to stand out. I didn't break too many standards in our brand guide, but we did something different. The monotony of driving in, the monotony of scrolling through Facebook, of scrolling through LinkedIn, of scrolling through Instagram, you got to stand out to make someone just pause for that 1 second.
Yeah. Interruptive marketing. Yeah.
Yeah. You could have the greatest content and message and offer, but you miss the people because it looks like everything else. So, that's something that, to your original question, we've had to balance. And with direct mail, we're trying to do something different to get you to open it, but then we got to get you to stay. And it's almost the opposite on digital, where whether it's an email, everything on email, you'd be surprised. I talked to a couple of people, they had sent me over their email templates. I said, "Have you looked at this on your phone?" And they said, no, but it looks great on my screen, on my laptop. I said, "Guys, you totally missed it. I won't get to where your offer is because you lost me." So I think for each channel, creative is so important. But before creative, it's your data. I don't care what you're creating. If you don't have the right data or the right strategy of who your customer is and the knowledge, creative doesn't matter at all. So I think it's a combination, very long-winded way to answer your question, but you can see I'm very passionate about the creative side and what goes in, even the little intricacies. One of my mentors, one of the original founders at BHG, I used to think like the stamp on the envelope, the return label, all of it's a science, and that creative that goes behind it is all part of that recipe that makes for good outreach. So hopefully that, we covered a couple things there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my takeaway from that with the kitchen analogy is, marketing is a recipe. And if you screw up an ingredient, even just a little bit, the end result is not the same, right? Yeah. People are going to be like, "Oh, this isn't the right thing." So thanks so much for joining me, Chris. It's been a pleasure brainstorming about marketing. I do look forward to seeing what's next on your adventure, your marketing adventure. So looking forward to that.
I appreciate it, Kevin. It was great to meet you, and definitely want to continue talking about giving forward and the charity side. It's something that I'm very passionate about. So I appreciate you taking the time to have me today.
Oh, looking forward. Thanks so much.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.